Welcome back, everyone. Welcome to our podcast. I'm Cristovao here at MJ Tillon. I've got Melanie Thorley here today as well.
Hello.
And so what's been going on? Well, obviously we've also got eBay here as well.
I've got eBay sitting on my lap, but she won't stay there for long. Well, I don't know. I've got a blank. We've lost Nera at the office.
Yes.
Lost as in she hasn't, gone on walkabout and
she's not lost to the world.
disappeared somewhere. But she resigned to do a couple of different things, didn't she? Which is kind of exciting. We'll see how that goes, and we'll keep you guys.
A little closer.
Yeah, we'll follow you as we go down, and you can see eBay's now lost interest
Down the ramp.
Yep. So yeah, we've done that, and so really interesting popped up this morning. I get lots and lots of emails about different opportunities, shall we say. Sometimes it's an opportunity to make my website better, and sometimes it's an opportunity to spend money on other things. And the Small Business Association of Australia sent me an opportunity to go to one of their seminars, which was very fun. And they had in their promotional material a bunch of statistics about business.
Yeah.
And
were they horrifying?
They're just really... I just can't get my head around them a little bit, because statistics are a bit of a funny thing, and I'm not saying that they're making stuff up.
Yeah.
Because they've called it the MSME's Australian Statistics, and I don't know what that means because it's not defined anywhere, but I'm going to assume it's somebody who does statistics. And they say that there are approximately 2.4 million actively trading small businesses in 2019. 2.4 million small businesses. And it made me think about the definition of small business. Because the Fair Act has a definition, and the ATO has a definition, but it made me wonder what other definitions there might be.
So what does your average person consider to be small, what's medium and what's large?
Yeah, and how one defines it, or and in what way. Like, under the Fair Work, those who don't know, the Fair Work Act has a definition of small business, and it's less than 15 employees. And it's specifically less than 15 employees, not 14 or less employees, but it's essentially 14 or less employees. Yeah. Whereas, and you can earn as much money as you like.
Yeah.
It's an unlimited cap on finances. But the ATO have a different definition. I believe it's 30 mil or less.
Yeah, so for the purposes of tax, they've got their own kind of thing.
They've got their own thing, and that could be one employee earning 30 mil, or you could have a business of 200 people collectively earning 30 mil.
You could see that if your number one, if there wasn't any sort of money cap, whether it be ATO or under the Fair Work Act, you could see how you could potentially structure probably more like a medium enterprise into something that is small.
Get the tax benefits, that sort of thing.
If you were to break it up into, if you had a company and each little team, which would only had, let's say 13, 14 employees, has a different company, and you can do it. But you have to think though.
I think this little monster's getting a bit
antsy.
Yeah, she's playing with a toy. She wants us to throw it. I'll see how well she goes, and then perhaps we'll pop her in her little space. Yeah, I was interested in this 2.4 million actively trading small business in 2019, and then it said 96% of businesses in Australia are small businesses. So
basically everyone.
Yeah, basically everyone. And then it went 88% of these businesses are micro-employing 0 to 4 staff, and approximately 700,000 do not employ staff. So they're moving around all these statistics, to and it doesn't mean anything. So we don't know what percentage of the 96 is 700,000 for a start. Yeah. Although I guess you could reverse engineer the mathematicians out there could probably figure out what 96% is. But can we? Because I guess we can, because 2.4 million, and if you say that's 96% of businesses, then you've got a figure.
Yeah.
700,000 don't employ staff, and there are 868,248 employing businesses of all sizes, of all employing businesses. I don't know what that means. And 812,000 are considered small businesses with fewer than 20 employees. So there's all these kind of numbers out there about what a small business is. And it just kind of made me think about how individual businesses consider this kind of concept. And we know in law there are sole practitioners, those people who are just the lawyer and that's it. It's the only people in the business.
Basically a sole trader.
Yeah, sole trader. They might have someone helping them with the admin, but they're a sole practitioner. And then we have these micro businesses, which have 5 or less employees. Sometimes they might be solicitors, sometimes they're not. And then we've got medium and top tier and stuff like that. But do businesses have the same concept?
Well, I wonder in different industries whether, because sometimes there's almost a prejudice against small business, which is crazy when you consider
96 or 98.
Almost everyone
96% of small businesses are small.
Almost is, but a lot of the time people don't like to see themselves as small. Something about maybe it's just the word small.
Hang on, peoples. I'm just going to pop little eBay out of the site. And I'm going to pop her in her cage. Here we go. And you go. And we're going to give her something to chew on. There you go. Sorry, everybody. I'll pop back into camera. And we're back.
Yeah, I just wonder whether we should, as a society, kind of think about business a bit differently and how we deal with each other.
Yeah.
One of the things that always annoys me is, you'll get some big company is struggling and, the government steps in and decides to bail. Not bail them out, but help them in some description.
Car companies are a prime example of this.
Great example, when we all paid some ridiculous number per Commodore that was ever made. Congratulations, we all own a part of a Commodore. But then I sometimes feel like they might hire 100 people. But look at that, it takes 6 businesses, 7 businesses tops, which might be a shopping block. Your local shopping block where you get your takeaway may or employ just as many people as that. And you just, what's for them?
Well, yes, big business will say that small businesses get a lot of subsidies. We only pay 27.5% tax or something like that. Please don't quote these numbers. I'm not a tax agent. Whereas businesses are not considered small businesses, pay 30%. So there's already a concession. There's a lot of, ways out there for us to get subsidies or get grants and stuff like that, whereas big business doesn't necessarily get that. And without using the word, we've had a big thing recently that meant that the government bailed us out. The event that the government bailed us out, and they specifically gave less money to big business and was helping specifically small business. So I think
maybe behind the scenes it's all happening, but on the face of it, it's...
But what about our attitudes to business? Do we prefer to work and contract with and engage businesses that are bigger?
Well, the stats probably say no, because you don't have 96% of the businesses being small.
What about IGA versus Woolworths? Is it by share that there's not an IGA on every corner, but a Woolworths is, that makes Woolworths more popular?
Well, I have the option of all 3, which are roughly the same. And I'm quite prejudiced towards Woolies, just because
it's cheaper.
Like them. I don't know.
I think it's
pure loyalty. It's actually pure loyalty above all else.
Yeah, okay, so loyalty means something. Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? Like, every now and again I need a tradie.
Yeah.
And more recently I needed a tradie that came in to do some plumbing. And when I went out there to look for someone to do plumbing, some of them had logos like we will always turn up.
Real low hanging fruit requirement.
Yeah, we will always turn up. And I just thought, when I looked at those, I thought, does that mean that whoever I choose might not turn up?
Well, they might not.
And the answer is absolutely yes. It was bloody hard to get a tradie who turned up. And I certainly am not, I'm not going to tell you whom I got or what logo they had. But it made me start thinking that if I chose a larger company, like the Valions, I don't know what they're called. There's a company out there that kind of does a little bit of everything. They do gas, they do solar, they do plumbing, and they're kind of an old, big company. Yeah. And I don't know whether they contract smaller or, you know, peeps.
Who's actually turning up.
Or they have employees, but they're kind of like a big umbrella company. And it made me wonder whether someone like that would be more reliable because they've got more people there that can turn up on the right time than a individual tradie who might not be able to.
Possibly, but then you run into your other problems, which you wouldn't have gotten with the smaller guy, which is something goes wrong, it becomes bigger than being heard. That
it's harder to get someone to take responsibility for it.
It's hard to take someone responsibility. You're not getting, maybe there's a dispute with your bill, and you got all the clunkiness that comes with that. You don't get an agile service.
Yeah.
I think you'll find that there's equally as problematic. I think what you really want is just good service. And
when logos start looking...
Good service is largely an individual thing. Is the people you happen to deal with, which whether it be small, big, is probably a handful of people,
Yeah, this
2 or
is true.
3. And if they happen to be service orientated, then I think you'll get a good service.
This is true. We've recently engaged someone to put gutter proofing on our...
As in like the
stuff that goes over the gutter so stuff doesn't fall into the gutter. Yeah, and there are a gajillion companies that do this. And we found one that came really fast to our house, which was brilliant. And they asked for a deposit, which wasn't insignificant. And then they said, someone will contact you shortly to arrange the time the gutter went on.
So he's come,
he's
done like a quote,
that's right,
sort of thing, and then he's collected the deposit.
That's right.
And then he's told you someone will be here.
Someone will contact us shortly. Now we've waited 2.5 months, and we called up the organisation. They said, yep. We don't contact you about the arrangement to come until the week with which we come. And I look at this and go, that doesn't make any sense to me. Surely you've got a bigger planning more than just one week ahead, because we've been on your books now for almost 3 months. And they said, no, it's all fine. We're gonna, it'll be some. The first time we called it's going to be sometime in April. That's fine. But now we're in May, obviously. So we call up and they go, yeah, someone's coming next week. They'll contact you about that next week. And it just made me think that it's a relatively large company, what we thought was a large company, and that they can't even get themselves together to
set a proper schedule,
to even give us information about that schedule, and made us feel like once they've got a bit of our money, they know that we're locked in, and therefore can basically throw us around a little bit.
But with a deposit like that, could you just walk away saying, we'll go with someone else, give me my money back?
I don't know, we didn't try, but it'd be interesting
because
to
I
find
suspect
out.
that they have a feeling though that they can't. Now I don't think that's necessarily the case. But certainly your average person's probably going to feel that way, that you've given the money, and it also means you're going to drop everything out of the hat,
well, this
on
is
a whim
true.
to be there for them.
Yeah, look, it's I don't know whether we have to turn up or not, but someone might have to, it's like some tradie who says, I'll be there at 7, and then we're at 7:30, and I needed to leave for work at 7:10, and all this sort of stuff,
we're going to deliver your package anywhere between 11 and 8.
Yeah, and it's
make sure you're at home. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, it's just kind of weird, and just following that on. Now we're a law practice, obviously. It makes me wonder what people expect from lawyers, because we've got that kind of axis of evil where we've got time, quality, and money. Yeah, and if we give people an expectation of time, there's a value to that. Quality, because it takes time to do quality, but also more quality and more time, the more money it costs. So you've got to get like a happy medium. So for those who don't know, lawyers work on this time, quality, money kind of circle. I call it a circle. It could be a triangle, I guess, where everything affects everything. The more time you put into something, the better quality it is, but the more money it costs.
Yeah.
The less time, the cheaper it is, but the worse quality. You know, so you've got kind of this happy medium. And I don't necessarily think that clients have the same expectations as we do when it comes to time, cost, and quality. I just wonder how we as solicitors can get that communication better. Because there's a lot going on. For those who have watched our podcasts before, we've done this one, frequently asked questions. And one of the frequently asked questions we asked was, I've just got one question, it's going to be really quick.
Yeah.
And we talked about that in one of our other podcasts. And for lawyers, there's a lot going on in our heads. For those who watched it, they'll understand. And so that time, cost and quality thing, and there's this perfectionist in us, and in the industry there's this question of perfection, but there's also perfection costs time and money. So I'm just wondering how we can manage that in the community.
I wonder if it's because lawyers are, I suspect, we're held to a bit of a higher standard than your average service. Probably comes from the costs.
Yeah.
It also comes from people probably want their legal service to be more accurate than their gutter.
Yeah.
Even though they're largely,
Yeah.
you know, they're both important.
So you're saying the more money someone puts into something, the more perfect it needs to be?
Yes. And even if that's not, even if they don't realise that the money is actually the same, you know, you might go to a doctor and pay $70 for an appointment.
Yeah, 10-minute appointment.
10-minute appointment.
Which is higher than my fees, by the way. That's $700 an hour, by the way.
That's true. That's true. Although they usually talk for a lot longer.
Well, that's not our fault, though.
No,
they can churn out their clients in 10 minutes if they wanted to.
And
doctors, please don't call in and say how impossible that is.
And people, even though it's still $70, which is significantly less than, you know, your gutter, they want their doctor to be 100% right. They don't want it half right. You know, they want it 100% of the time.
They do want 100% right.
And they want it perfect, quick, everything about it, despite the fact that it's far cheaper and your time, money is now completely out of whack. But I think it just comes from the fact that they expect more from lawyers and doctors, and your accountants would be the exact same. If you were to make a mistake on someone's tax, people are going to expect a lot more from that. I think it's to do with just the stakes are higher. People are scared of not complying, and they want it 100% right. So
it's not necessarily about the cost being if the more you pay, the more expectation is that you get it right. It's actually the industry. Because if you take it from a different perspective and say, well, I'm paying a lot of money, so I want it to be right. We pay a lot of money for lots of things. We pay a lot of money for a wedding photographer, for a wedding cake, for lots of for lots and lots and lots of things. And somehow we don't expect weddings to go perfect. No. Somehow we don't expect our cake to be absolutely scrummy yummy. But we do expect our lawyers to get it right all the time.
And
it's a lot of stress, guys, by the way. It's a lot of pressure.
No, but I think it's all just industry based. I think it is probably long-standing views about certainly our industry. I imagine it's the same with the other professional services, about who we are, and people think that you've been to law school, you should know everything.
I know everything. Well, I do know everything, Chris. And you know everything too, surely.
Sure, definitely. Everything. Ask me anything, and I'll
anything
give you
at all.
The perfect answer. But no, it's just industry based. It's
fair enough.
But I think this week though I was watching the TV as I do, most of us do, and As you know, I'm an avid reality TV show
Yes,
fan.
I do know that.
I do. I do frequent them, and I think a lot of it is to do with how just dumb it is.
Right.
It's just completely different to what we do for work. It's a nice change.
Yeah.
It just don't have to think very hard.
Yeah.
And I saw a news article this week, and it was about. Have you ever heard of My Kitchen Rules?
I have. This is about where. This is not about fancy cooks being fancier, is it? This is about people who cook at home being good at cooking at home.
Basically.
And they do it in the person's house? Is that what they do also? Or do they go
at their house. By the way, I've
is it their
complete
house?
Side note, I found out that a lot of the time it's not their house because their house, and how embarrassing is this, is not up to
Kitchen.
TV standards.
So if you don't have a TV standard house, they
find you a house to cook in. And
that is fantastic.
The whole thing, and by the way, the crazy things like the whole show takes like all night.
Really?
Yeah, like they might start at 5, 6. They don't leave until like 2, 3 in the morning.
Oh my God. If anybody out there is watching, if your house has been the house that has been good enough for My Kitchen Rules, please contact us. I find this fascinating.
Because that's an ultimate compliment, right?
Oh, I think that's brilliant.
We found your house and it's good enough to be.
Yeah, and tell us about this like lengthy experience. Anyway, so
imagine having people just coming into your house and
just taking it over, lights everywhere. My Kitchen Rules. So
All right. So basically, it's a show where people on the street cook for a bunch of people, and they kind of vote and about whose food is good.
Vote or maliciously.
Well, this is where this comes to. So a woman was awarded, I think it was $20,000 per year in workers' compensation because she was the villain of her year. And there was some very salacious type of story. You know how each of the person basically gets a storyline?
Yeah.
And hers was sleeping with the enemy. Right? And basically they're running this innuendo that she was kind of sleeping with one of the other contestants. Now, this is completely false.
Now, are these contestants... Each My Kitchen, is it meant to be a couple or is it just meant to be 2 people?
Some of them are couples,
right?
But a lot of them aren't. They're just 2 people. They might be brothers, sisters,
or mates, or something.
Mum, son, all sorts.
Okay.
And this was kind of the storyline they ran for her.
How long ago was the storyline?
2 years ago.
Right. Okay. Is this a show that comes on once a year?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So 2 seasons ago.
Yeah.
And she has been awarded basically for bullying and harassment, and that she suffered mentally because of it. And I kind of see it. I mean, it's super damaging for the reality TV show industry because there was a couple things in dispute here. It was basically, was she an employee?
Yes.
They have an insert about her contract, and it has, in no uncertain terms,
you are not an employee.
You are not an employee. This is not an employment relationship.
Yeah.
Blah blah blah.
Like we write into all our contracting agreements.
Yeah.
No, none of this relationship is employee relationship. You cannot construe it to be one. Blah 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 blah.
No uncertain terms. That went out the window, and I can see it. I mean, they were getting paid a wage.
They get paid a wage to be on the show.
They get paid a wage because it's minuscule. It was $500 cash. So $500 in wages and $500 in allowances.
Okay.
Which is a strange.
Is it because it costs $500 to seat everybody and feed them, and they don't want to be out of pocket? Is that how that works?
Possibly, but I suspect that the food is still paid for by the because it's accommodation. I can only assume it's for when, because they have to travel. They're from all different parts of the country.
Right.
So
So they get $1,000 for the entire show, or is it $500
per week?
Per week.
Yeah, per week. And I don't know if it's per week of shooting.
How I can see this because you'd have to give up your job for a while to get on with it. So you have to survive somehow.
You have to survive, and although they denied this,
was super paid? I guess there's a whole pile. So I'll stop asking all the legal questions.
No, well, you should because this is kind of where I was headed. Was they determined that she was an employee, and the reason it was she was getting a wage. It was regular work. It was steady.
fits all that criteria.
Fits all the criteria. I mean, they're deriving a benefit from them. I mean, they're essentially...
And they couldn't get someone else to do it. They couldn't just palm off him to put you on.
No, and you can see...
Yeah.
I think when you really think about it, it fits within it.
Okay.
But this particular issue out about workers' compensation, which put aside, but it completely opens up about all the other issues. Because I don't think they'd be being paid super. I don't think they'd be paying annual leave. I don't think there'd be this and that. What happens if you get voted out? Are you dismissed? Is that a valid reason?
Unfair dismissal.
Well,
valid reason.
What if the reason you were voted off was complete and utter BS? You know, where does this stop? And where does this leave the reality TV?
Yeah, so I was going to say, where does this leave reality TV? Because because Big Brother's happening right now. Those guys are literally in there for the money. And
you can see why they need to be paid. Because...
Do they get paid regularly?
I think they do.
See, I don't understand that.
I know the block gets paid.
Do they?
Yeah, they collect about $40,000, I think.
Really?
Because
I know that
they're basically contracted. They're building.
Yeah, well, that's true. They're building a
Which the Channel 9 or whoever's doing it gets to sell the place.
Yeah, that's true.
So you can't just have slaves and call them reality and film them and call them reality TV shows.
Well, no one would go on it because it's actually quite stressful, which hence the work cover claim.
Well, that's true. But I mean, you can. There's a good chance you get some Instagram followers, you get a bit of a following,
That's right, they can become minor celebrities in your own right. Some of them have been on those other reality TV shows.
Yeah, there's a following.
Dancing with Stars and all that sort of thing.
But, for this poor girl, it's essentially like your boss, after the fact of filming, is now trashing you to the rest of the world.
Well, it's not just that, it's the rest of the world. Because I don't think many people can separate the personalities on TV to the personalities in reality.
Yeah.
And this came up from time to time for people like... For those that don't know, there's a long-running TV show in England called the Coronation Street. It's been going on for like 50 or 60 years.
Their version of Home and Away.
Crazy long time, yeah. I think it's one of the longest running TV shows in the world. And some of the baddies, if you want to call them that, would get eggs thrown at them and shit like that in supermarkets, and people going up to them, I cannot believe you're doing that to little Lucy, and little Lucy's a television character, this sort of thing.
Well, they're with their family walking down the street.
Little Lucy doesn't exist because she's a TV character, and oh, by the way, little Lucy's not called Lucy,
And actually we're really good friends.
Yeah.
And we actually had dinner last week.
I can't believe you stole that dog, and just like, what? So people have difficulty separating out these characters, right? And although I'm not privy to how long these shows go for, I do know they go for a while.
Most of them would be going for, I imagine, filming for 2-3 months.
Right.
So it's not.
It's really hard to separate. Yeah, I don't know how that's going to go. So what's the end game for this then?
Well, this is what I'm really interested in, is where does this leave reality TV? Because there are always villains, and they are almost always a load of rubbish.
But this is what makes the shows interesting, right? If everyone got along, it wouldn't be TV.
It'd be extremely boring.
Right.
You have to have these people. You have to basically slander someone. So if every single one of them is... Because you can see mental health's going to be a problem with every single one of them, because you're just posting them on everywhere and telling them this and that.
But you're also putting really bad mixes in. In an employment environment, you kind of work out who's a good fit. Right? We love that word. It's not a good fit.
You don't put people who hate each other in the same room.
Or they just can't work together because this person is passive aggressive and this person's openly aggressive, and they just kind of all day. Or like we have 2 cats and a dog in this office. You couldn't have someone who's terrified of dogs because they'd be constantly stressed, and that just wouldn't make any sense.
So you're kind of managing your environment.
Yeah.
But they're doing the exact opposite.
And they're
doing
just pushing it.
Intentionally. Completely intentionally. So if they're all employees, then...
Duty of care and all that.
God, it'd be... They're falling foul everywhere. And I just wonder where this leaves them.
Is it the end of reality TV? Or the beginning, this thin end of the wedge type stuff? Beginning of the end.
But maybe, but our appetite for it is, I think, maintaining.
Well, it's funny as a society, isn't it? Because we know intellectually these things are all totally fake,
Yeah.
but we still buy into it. And it's like, I don't know, for those of you who are my age, back when I was, really show my age now, back when I was a kid, World Wrestling was, Superstars of World Wrestling was,
WWE.
yeah, it was a really cool show, and it was cool for a long time.
Yeah.
But we had these characters called, was it Jeff that was something, the Heartman, Heart,
Yeah.
and you know, at the time there was Hulk Hogan was there and stuff like that. So you know, we had all these characters, and as a child, I believed it was all real, you know, stuff. But as an adult, we know it's a dance and it's a choreographed thing.
Yeah.
And now, as an adult, I watch it and I can see the umpire going, you know, doing his taps, showing them what to do next. You know, like a lady stands up, or someone stands up with children who are dancing, showing them what the next
best way of
steps were.
thinking about wrestling is it is basically redneck's opera or redneck circus.
You're going to get a lot of phone calls
I
on
am
that
going
one.
to talk about it,
But it's brilliant, right?
it's exactly true.
But it's choreographed dancing, you know, and it's beautiful, and it's fun to watch, and we know
It
that
is
it's
fun.
fake, but we buy into it nevertheless. Who's going to win this week, you know?
Yeah.
And then some girl gets on stage and starts going, "You slept with my boyfriend."
It's all very salacious, scandalous.
It's brilliant. The girl, you know, and the girls are barely dressed and all this sort of stuff. But we do the same with this reality TV show, for these people who are stuck on islands and inside, you know, houses like Big Brother, or cooking shows where everyone's horrible to each other, or I mean, there's got to be hundreds, or I don't know, but the list goes on, right? So, at what point do we stop seeing? You know, I just don't know where the end is for this. I don't know what if everyone's an employee and we have to have a duty of care, and the Work Health and Safety Act exists, and there's sexual harassment and discrimination and workplace complaints and all that works, then it's not going to work.
I probably tend to agree with you. Like, if it opens everything up and there is no carve out for it, which, you know, I can't imagine there will be, you just can't see it continuing. Not in the way it
Has to
is,
change, right?
unless they just run the risk. Because, I mean, they
It's been going for years without it.
They would be making a lot of money from that show. I mean, I know it's probably not the best business practice or, you know, most ethical practice, but maybe.
This is similar to your priest who was, you know.
Yeah, the one who got fired because he refused to repent his sins and got kicked out of the church, which was essentially firing.
Yeah, and he was considered an employee, wasn't he?
Yeah, because again.
But nothing's
he
happened
basically
since. You know, we just maybe these are all giant storms in teacups, an anomaly in the legal world.
Well, but I was reading the kind of chain, because this is a bit of a chain to these kind of cases, and there's been 2 others in the last 2 years in different shows, basically bringing the same thing about being essentially harassed and bullied by virtue of the way that they were portrayed on the show. I mean, she also raised other things, like they were working over 40 hours a week, and
Stressed.
you know, they're stressed. There was stress, and they were being called at all hours of the morning for work,
and they had to go stay up until 2 o'clock in the morning.
It's, you know.
I would hate that. I hate sitting down for a dinner.
Can you imagine?
I remember I was in Byron Bay years ago. This is
Yeah.
before it got commercialised. And we were at a restaurant and it was busy. I accept it was busy. We sat down at like 5:30, got our entrees at about 8, and
So it's already been 3.5 hours.
they were 2.5 hours.
2.5 hours.
And then when we asked them when our mains were coming, this is about 9 o'clock at night, they said, "Surely you're enjoying each other's company."
Oh no, they didn't.
And I'm sitting there going, I'm actually hungry. The reason why
we can just talk to each other anywhere.
and whether I enjoy my husband's company or not is irrelevant to your service of giving me food after I've paid for it, you know. So we got up and left, for obvious reasons. And I just wonder, when is enough enough? When can you, in these shows, just go, you know what, I'm out?
Well, I mean, they probably have some sort of...
Does anybody leave? I don't watch these shows.
They do sometimes.
People go, bugger this, I'm out.
Yeah, they usually make a big thing of it. I don't know whether it's necessarily they're leaving for the reason that gets portrayed. Because it would never be, God, I hate this show.
I hate everyone here. I hate you and I hate you.
I hate the producers.
I hate the producers.
All the contestants, lovely people, but actually the people behind the scenes suck. I don't think that's going to make the TV.
One of these public exits you hear on at work. I hate you.
I mean, but God, do you think? And by all means, if there are people out there that have worked behind the scenes in reality, please contact me because I think it is the most interesting.
We're fascinated by this environment.
You're at a dinner party for 10 hours. You're gonna get 3 courses, and we can see what they're like. Look, they might be super tasty, but they're not massive. Do you think they get food in between?
They would
Because I'd be so hangry and
well, you'd eat it too fast as well.
you just scoff it. You're giving straight 10s all season because you are just so hungry.
That's right.
The whole time.
And people go, "How was it?" You go, "How was what?"
I'm just hungry.
I didn't even hit the sides, dude.
You see in the corner of the footage, there's one person who's just scoffing.
That's right. And, are you finished with that?
Yeah, they're poking around.
Yeah, it's like, did you want to eat that?
They're kind of hiding. They pack a lunchbox under the table.
They would have to because surely on those shows people leave some of their food on their plate.
Yeah, it's a kind of dramatic thing.
Yeah, and after 10 hours, you wouldn't. It wouldn't.
It doesn't matter
how bad the food is, because food is never inedible. No matter what people say on these television shows, it's not inedible. Therefore, they're going to eat it if they're super hungry and there's no other choice.
You're going to absolutely do it. Well, I mean, one of the things I've met someone who was on MasterChef before.
Really?
And she was telling me some of the secrets was. Because they're kind of cooking frantically.
Yeah, it's really contrived as well, though, right? Like you just kind of you get a limited number of vegetables to do. It's all really kind of staged, right? So
they're cooking and it's dirty, it's messy. There's flour everywhere, and then cuts the next scene, and they're all sort of sitting there with their plates, waiting for the judges to come, and the place is like spotless. And it only dawned on me when I was speaking to her, that would take a while.
Yeah, it does.
Clean the whole set. And she says what they do is they take all the food, like their plates, put it to the side, put it in a fridge. They then wheel out the whole station. A whole new station gets put in because it's actually just quicker than cleaning it. Like they move all these things off, clean all the floors, re-wax the floors. It takes ages apparently. They then reset the set, and the reason they put all this stuff in the fridge is, I think, partially because food safety. I mean, that still exists, but it's fair. So all food is equally as bad as each other because your steak is cold as anything.
I don't get it then, because there are certain foods that just taste better.
That's what I said.
At room temperature or hot.
Surely you would then make...
Because your taste buds like
all the cold stuff. You're going to make, all your desserts which are cold, not, a steak.
Yeah, because like a hot pot or something is going to be really glutinous.
It's gonna. And I thought, those judges have been lying to us because you're saying this tastes lovely, but that is not true.
Mashed potatoes doesn't taste good cold.
No, it doesn't.
Gravy is pretty horrible cold.
Yeah.
It's just, there are very few foods that after you cook it, you wait for it to go cold and it tastes better.
And really cold. Really, really cold.
I mean, we all eat our fries cold, but we don't like them.
Yeah.
It's
and it's...
That is weird.
Yeah, proper. And they're the same thing, though, that the whole set takes, like, all day.
Do they at least eat the food hot first and then bring out the cold plate and then take a nibble and make a decision? Because how would they possibly know who's good and who's bad? I'm going to be super controversial because I watched, and this is going to get me, you know, a lot of hate mail, I'm sure of it. But years ago, there was a Master Chef with a girl called Po in it, an Asian girl. Yeah. And there was a woman in it also, and
I know exactly. Julie. Julie,
and Julie won.
You're bringing up the robbery that was that season. I'm glad someone else has brought this up. That was robbery.
I think Po should have won. As Po, right? Yeah. I think Po should have won, and the reason, and I just think her food looks better. Personally, I didn't taste it. Obviously, I certainly didn't taste it cold, but Julie just wasn't as good a cook.
Yes.
She just couldn't get shit done. And,
yes.
And after she won, I hardly ever watch what I call Smiley News channels, which is these morning magazine shows, evening magazine TV shows. They're just not for me. But I was happening to watch one back then, and it had Julie on it cooking an omelette. And the omelette was all broken up. And I'm like, how can an omelette be broken up if you won Best
Chef? Broken up like she did the
mess.
flippy thing and
it just fell apart. Yeah, and it's like, how can you do that? And
God.
And win Best Cookiest Cook of the Year award. It's just.
I don't know if you remember that season, but
I didn't watch all of the show though.
She was a liability throughout. She was always on near the bottom, and just so having to scrape away. The controversy was the whole way through. The robbery was from the start.
But the food was so dull, and the food, you know, it just seemed like, anyway. So, but I was happy to find out that Po in later years became basically a cook superstar.
Yeah, she
and she's got some really fun cooking shows. I'm now plugging Po, because my husband loves cooking shows. But I've never heard of this lady again. I don't know where she's doing.
The proof is in the pudding.
Yeah,
literally, and they all come to the top.
But is it like that? The person you want to win doesn't?
Well, I suspect, and this comes down to like what we were talking about before, where, you know, the controversy of producers like getting a little bit too overly involved. I suspect that it was more marketable.
The mumsy cook was going to market better than the young hottie.
Yes.
Please do not send in. But you can market to either of those, right? Like the Julia Childs of cooking versus, what's that guy's name? The one with the kids now who is a bit mumsy. That British dude who makes...
Oh, Jamie Oliver.
Yeah, like, because back when he was younger, he would have been the Po, and Julie would have been the Julia Childs, kind of difference in...
Yeah, I don't mean, they're not... It's not like she was completely unmarketable, but I just think they determined that Julie was more.
Yeah.
And didn't matter what she cooked, she was winning that.
Yeah.
Which is a bit unfair when you consider that you do actually get a prize money out of this.
This is true. And you get a whole pile of other things like press.
Yeah.
And cooking shows, and, you know, there's other things that knock on from that. Po had to create something, whereas that was given to Julie, from what I understand. But yes, I'm going to be super, you know, 100,000 people.
The robbery that was that year is well known amongst the world, I think, because your average viewer, and I wonder if producers kind of realise, the average viewer, they're not stupid. They know they're watching something that is not real in its entirety. They're happy to look past it, but when it steps almost too far, where it's just strange, it's unbelievable, where you're watching it and you just think this
is not true. What
they're saying is not true.
Yeah, this is really interesting. I was in America when the first America's Got Talent, I think, music, from a music...
American Idol?
American Idol played out.
Simon Cowell.
Yeah, but it wasn't Simon Cowell in America. It was the first American one. And don't think it was Simon Cowell. And Kelly Clarkson won.
Mm.
And the guy that she bet, I can't remember his name now, but he's also a superstar. And everyone thought he was going to win because he was like brilliant on stage, was super engaging. This is years ago, obviously. And all of a sudden it was Kelly Clarkson. Now, Kelly Clarkson did become a superstar, but she had to really fight for it, whereas that other guy just kind of did it naturally. They said the reason why she won over this other guy is because she blossomed the most in the show.
So she grew.
She grew into something that they could market, as opposed to this guy who was just always really great. And I just thought that was really mean of them, because what they're saying is natural talent and natural showmanship didn't make any difference. You had to have something that was going to get bigger, you know, grow and grow and grow. And someone who is going to grow into the role was more marketable than someone who already could entertain, which I thought was actually really mean. It was a bit controversial back then too.
It's probably controversial. Well, to be fair, Kelly Clarkson's kind of grown into something fairly big.
She's a superstar. No doubt. She's. I actually have some of her music on my, iPod thingy. But yeah, it was just interesting that this other guy, who's now turned into his own superstar, I can't remember who it was. I can't remember the guy's name is now.
It's not Adam Lambert, is it?
No.
He was later seasons.
No, I think he sung next to Madonna and shit like that.
He's had his own.
He's had his own superstarness, but he had to create it. As in Kelly Clarkson, she had the next single produced for her and stuff like that.
Yeah, something completely exciting. Kelly Clarkson's about to replace Ellen as kind of the next TV.
She's doing TV show now, I think.
She's got her own daytime TV, and apparently she's killing it.
I actually really like Kelly. She's got this kind of wholesome, persona. She hasn't gone off the rails as such.
She hasn't bullied everyone unfortunately.
Who knew? I did not know that.
I'm going to put my hand up and say I thought
you called it.
I called it.
Called it?
You just, I don't know. I just got it.
You got the feeling?
I got the feeling. Also, almost all comedians find themselves in trouble.
Oh my God. Some of them,
you know what I mean? For one thing or another.
Just behave like a dick.
Their life in the spotlight is limited because they are just going to say something.
Do something dumb. This is true. There's the, I don't know, you're a bit of a, kind of a cult TV fan. Have you ever seen the IT Crowd?
No, I stayed away from it, but I do know what it's about.
There's a show called the IT Crowd, and in it there's a guy who now does the Gadget Man, and he does goes overseas for a weekend television shows, and I think he's quite funny. But the people he has on the show sometimes are just total dicks.
What do you mean?
Well, he brings a comedian. Yeah. He brings someone funny along with him on these weekend holidays, and some of them are just total assholes. They were. I think I can't remember, they were at the beach somewhere, and they had one of these mats that you put on the sand, and if you put sand on it, it kind of sifts through to the bottom, and they're quite fun, and this was a new thing back then, and obviously they get paid to promo all these items. And so what this comedian did is he kind of put the mat up like this, and oh my God, this is going to totally give it away. And he picked up the sand and just chucked it at it, and of course the sand just kind of bounced off. Yeah. He goes, well, that doesn't
work that well.
Yeah, he goes, that doesn't work, does it? And Gadget Man kind of pulled it back and said, "Yep, that was the
sponsor."
No, he said that was the product test that the sponsor wanted to see. And it was just stop being such an asshole about this.
Just play ball.
Yeah, just use the product the way it was designed and see if it works. If you don't like it, pan it out then. Yeah. I mean, there were lots of crazy gadgets on the show, and you look at it and go, "Oh, who's going to use that?" And sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. But that's just that's just an assholey thing to do, right?
So, the comedian and stuff, they're just
going to do shit.
Name one, and there is controversy.
Yeah,
but that's kind of what their job is.
But this is behind the scenes. Ellen was a total witch.
Yeah, somehow hers kind of is worse.
I don't know what happened, but there was a bunch of people who walked off or something.
Yeah, it seems like she was just
a witch.
Really mean to her staff, essentially, and just weird stuff like no one was allowed to I think no one was allowed to like speak to her unless she spoke to them, and you know, like almost like royalty kind of stuff.
I don't think royalty do that, but yes.
But you know, she's not.
She is.
And just treating them abhorrently, and in today's day and age, that's seen as quite.
Well, also,
average, but-
you're not. You know, we're all taught as children, you know, deal with people the way you want to be dealt with. I mean, who thinks that's a nice way to deal with someone? I mean, what at what level? I mean, I know we all can get a bit short from time to time. We all kind of lose it from you know, in any moment in time when we've had a bad day or less sleep or whatever. But as a general rule, most of us behave in a way that's respectable.
Yeah.
You're talking about someone who consistently behaved without
Apparently.
respect.
Yeah, yeah. Without
Right.
completely respect.
And felt that was a perfectly,
Yeah,
well, maybe not acceptable, but that was the way that she could get away with.
yeah.
And
she
she
was-
really paid for it, in fact.
Yeah, well, I think she's finishing up this year as her last year.
Basically lost her show
and
because of
that's basically, I mean, she would have made
it. She's made enough money to look after
billions of
herself.
dollars,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I imagine that's pretty much her for.
It's funny, isn't it?
You know,
Because
public opinion doesn't change.
this happened recently with a restaurant in the Valley, from memory. There was a restaurant in the Valley that had a receipt that had 2 annoying Asians written on
Yeah.
it. And it wasn't that was the problem, it was the business owner tweeting it or putting it on Instagram going, "My staff are awesome." And
I've seen that.
I went to look for it, their Facebook page afterwards, and it's gone. It was gone like hours after the thing.
Do you think it comes down to like in today's day and age? You've got you know, social media's internet. You're invisible if you're not on it.
It's true.
Fact of matter as well.
Yeah.
if
Feel
you-
free to cyberstalk us as much as you like.
Well, you have to, you know, and
Yeah.
everyone does.
Yeah.
And I think everyone should just be completely unabashed about it. But it's such a double-edged sword.
It really is.
You step out of line just a little bit,
Yeah.
that's it for you.
This is true. We're quite controversial, in my view, on this show. We could be worse, but we could be a
We
lot
do
better.
hold it back sometimes.
We do hold it back sometimes. It could be worse, it could be a lot better. But we do say the odd controversial thing.
Yeah.
And it is risky, isn't it? It is very
It is
risky.
risky, but it's also the stakes are so much higher because people also want that. They don't want you to be risky.
They don't want you to be
They don't want you to
bland.
step over the line, but they want to know you.
They don't want you to be bland, but they don't want you to be non-bland in the wrong way.
They want you to be right on the level, and then it just falls apart when you
Go over the line.
go over the line. You know, take that restaurant. That people probably like that. You know, the people that followed him at least would have liked that he's a real person. He's approachable in that kind of sense of the word. They seem like they know him. But then the problem is if you know someone, you also know the bad parts about them, and you know.
Yeah,
so-
I think he probably, if he wanted to support his staff, he probably could have done that in a way that wasn't so public. Because he's the one that posted it.
Do you think he would have taken it back in hindsight?
I think he probably tried. But, you know...
That's not how it works.
There's a whole...
That's not how it's social.
That's right, there's a whole pile of toothpaste out of that tube.
There's a lot of screenshotting going on and things like that. So
Yeah.
it's not quite how it works.
No, it's not. There's a lot of toothpaste out of that tube, I think.
Yeah.
I think there's one thing that you can support your staff. There's another thing to do it publicly and humiliate somebody else in the process.
Yeah. Well, you pay the price.
Yeah, crazy. Well, people, hopefully you've enjoyed today's podcast. We'll be back again in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And until then, you guys have a lovely week. See you later.